got some good news for you. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Dr. Ron, Unfiltered, Uncensored. And this is Dr. Ron, and I am in the house. Episode 562. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking some time out of your day or night to listen to this podcast. We are always looking out for our wellness warriors. And as I told you last week, I planned one idea for a podcast, and as I'm getting ready to talk to you about it, something else pops up, and it happened again today. And I guess the events of the past week were stirring in my mind, and so I want to talk a little bit about the critical condition of our country and of our medical care. So America is, it's facing a crisis. The broader socioeconomic decline and all the other crises that are going on in the world. And what is important to us in this podcast is our faltering medical system. It was once a beacon of progress and prosperity. And now what? We're grappling with deepening inequalities, political polarization, and a weakened infrastructure. And the healthcare system, as we have been talking about, is plagued with soaring costs, inadequate access, and systemic inefficiencies. And it's failing to meet our needs. So it needs to be reformed. And we need to be, during this decline, a wellness warrior. By taking charge of our own medical care and becoming a warrior in the face of corruption and fake research. We have to take an active participation, ask questions, seek reliable information so we can navigate this system effectively. We have to empower ourselves with knowledge. We have to build our own support network and have this holistic approach to wellness so you can advocate for your well-being and help combat corruption in medicine. So a lot of things came into my mind as I was thinking about this program today. And one is from a paper called The Free Beacon. A professor there said that while there are good graduates from UCLA, a third to a half of the medical school is incredibly unqualified. Just think of that. From the story, it said one professor said that a student in the operating room could not identify a major artery when asked, and then berated the professor for putting her on the spot. Another said that students at the end of their clinical rotations don't know basic lab tests, and in some cases are unable to present patients. That is, explain the patients to the attending physicians and residents and other students. Quote, I don't know how some of these students are going to be junior doctors, unquote, said the professor. So That hit a hot button with me. That plus what we discussed last week about a science publisher has reportedly that has peer reviewed more than 1,000 papers that were determined to be fake. That's Wiley, Wiley. This industry of reporting and science papers is a scam. It looks like she said. And who knew the academic journals were a $30 billion industry? And that's because they're employing AI to craft articles that seem original, just shuffling around words. And Wiley has confessed that fraudulent activities have rendered 19 of his journals so compromised that they must be shut. So again, not to go on and on and on, but we have maybe doctors that will not be totally qualified. We have research articles that are bogus. And we cannot trust the science, and we cannot trust the doctors. So, what can you do to be a wellness warrior? Well, let's start out by discussing a little bit about the money we spend on cancer screening tests. So you think it's a good idea, right? And I think most people like the idea that cancer screening tests, by being performed, can detect fatal cancers earlier and therefore have more effective treatments. But think about this. As Socrates says, I cannot teach you anything. I can only encourage you to think. Think about this. Early screening may increase the risk of overdiagnosis, treating false positives, and potentially fatal treatment of cancers that would never progress to anything. Just on colon screening alone, we spend $40 billion. $15 billion on breast cancer screening, and $4 billion spent on prostate screening per year. Now, that was 2021. It's probably higher now. So, again, to think about it, are these billions and billions of dollars spent on screening asymptomatic people with no symptoms? Could it be more wisely spent? Can we teach and advise more on lifestyle changes that actually could extend life? Now, I'm not saying no one should be screened. That's not the point. It's that the majority of these healthcare dollars could be spent on health promoting practices and reserve the screening for those that are at the highest risk for developing cancers and carcinomas. And there may not be strong evidence that screenings prolong life. Just for one instance, just think about maybe people that die of cancer, they have the cancer coincident with another medical problem, right? You die of a heart problem, but during your prior 4 years or so, you were diagnosed with a prostate or breast tumor, but you die from the heart failure, but the cancer diagnosis is coincident and noted. And I've told you, Healthcare in the United States is expensive, and we are not getting the results because our life expectancy has lagged behind other developed countries who spend a lot less than we do. Maybe some of that money could be spent on access to healthcare, public health initiatives, because they all play a role in how long you live. So we're spending a lot of money and we have no real proof that it extends life. Cancer is still, well, if you put in pharmaceutical drugs as 882,000, it's number one cause of death. Heart disease second, and cancer is, they say it's second, but it's probably third. It hasn't changed. Still the top of the list. And they did this analysis of different studies. And in fact, here it is here, 18 studies, 2.1 million individuals. And that analysis with current evidence did not substantiate that common cancer screening tests save lives or, in fact, extend lives, except for the possibility of colorectal screenings, not with a colonoscopy, but with a sigmoidoscopy, which does not require anesthesia. So this meta-analysis summed up this: the only cancer screening with a significant lifetime gain was sigmoidoscopy. There was no significant difference between harms of screening and benefits of screening for mammography, prostate cancer screening, fecal occult blood testing screening every year or every other year, lung cancer screening, pap test cytology for cervical cancer screening. So, again, something to think about. We spend a lot of money, but are we getting a quality of life and a longevity to life? Are we spending enough time talking to people about how to increase their immune system? Remember, a superior interior is mostly in your gut. Do you hear enough about that? So that's a question to think about. Now, maybe we should do other kinds of screenings, that look more specifically at different microbial organisms in our body, different how the cells are looking. But there's a lot of uh, categories listed as something that you don't have to remember: phenotypic plasticity. But it's all related to lifestyle changes. Our environmental factors, we have to consider that. Most people, when you talk about what they're seeding the air with and chemtrails, they think you're crazy, but our air is getting more polluted every day. And we are not taking it serious what these toxins, these plastics, these chemicals that we come in contact with every day, or what is in our environment. We're not taking it serious enough as their cause and their link to cancer. They estimate that 70% of all cancers are related to diet and environment. Well, there would be a good place to start spending some of that money. And there are multiple research studies linking healthy lifestyles with decreased cancer risks and increased longevity. Remember, one of the most important factors for centenarians is socialization. Even though some smoked and were obese and didn't exercise, socialization. So we should be studying that. Okay. Again, just something to think about because nobody's saying it. But we've always said on this show, get the splinter out. We want to prevent the cancer in the first place. And if you do get cancer, we're going to get to the cause of it. Get the splinter out. And as you see, most of it could be cancers could be from environmental and toxic exposure. So we have to take an approach that an engineer would take. We have to look at the whole system, not just to the individual steps. Like, I always talk about, you have I just talked to someone today. They said, my sinuses bother me. So I went to my family doctor. He's sending me to an ENT. The ENT is sending me to an allergy doctor. The allergy doctor is going to send her, who knows, but everybody seems to go to like 5, 6 different doctors down here in Florida who has an allergist, an orthopedic surgeon, a dermatologist, whatever. I mean, it's every one of those specialties, they don't talk to one another. So what, maybe could it be as simple? Because simple things are sometimes the answer. Huh? Could it just be implement a healthy lifestyle that helps with our immune system and keeps us mentally on board, straight on track? Maybe the doctor of the future will say, okay, eat well, exercise, get some rest, and we'll talk. And the part that we have to think about is that the effects of this type of treatment, lifestyle, and environmental cleanup is not observed in 24 hours. It may take 20 years, but we have to head in that correct direction. We have to eat organic foods, especially the vegetables and fruits, because we've talked about glyphosate and all the other toxins that are involved in food. And we have to talk and explain to people about a Mediterranean diet, because people on a Mediterranean diet have a significantly lower incidence of chronic disease. It's not a fad diet. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not a keto diet or a high fat diet or whatever. It's a nice balanced diet with minimal meat, but it has meat in it. It has alcohol in it. So does that make any sense to you? So if we could reduce our environmental pollution, our toxins, get more active, eat healthier, increase our movement and exercise, boy, that along with some stress management, get a good night's sleep, and get up every morning and have a purpose in life. Take charge. Implement a holistic self-care lifestyle that could keep you healthier. And if you do have to end up at a doctor, think twice when they order a test, because there's another high price screening. These tests, over testing. So over screening carries a significant economic burden, but it wouldn't matter the economics of it if it produced results. But we still spend billions and billions of dollars on healthcare, and still our longevity comes in at the bottom of all the developed nations who spend a lot less. We've talked about, and if you want, we'll talk about. I mean, again, about just taking your temperature in the morning to detect subclinical disease, like hypothyroidism. But it seems like doctors order tests, well, to protect their butts, but maybe they think they're going to pick up subclinical diseases. Maybe they can't explain everything going on with the patient, so it looks good if they order a lot of tests. But how about tests that are ordered that the other effects beside the economic ones? How about how the patient feels? Do you think they feel anxious? Do you feel anxious when your doctor orders a lot of tests? You ever think about the exposures you have for that test? And Doctors Greenberg and Green emphasize that the drawbacks of testing are low diagnostic yields, high costs, and the emotional strain of false positives. You know? And gosh, if you have coronary disease, just to put it in perspective so you have something to think about. You go for a nuclear stress test. We'll do a nuclear stress test and see how your arteries are. Think about this now. You're exposed to the radiation equivalent of 400 chest x-rays. 400 chest x-rays for one nuclear stress test. We only do 8 million a year, so we might not be number one yet. 8 million a year, each one exposing you to the radiation equivalent of 400 chest x-rays. And the experts point out that this stress test mainly detects significant coronary stenosis. It doesn't identify non-obstructing plaques. So if your doc says, "Oh, you had a nuclear stress test, you're all clear," that could be misleading. And it could lead to other additional procedures. And how about a reaction to the test? In people with no coronary disease. So should they just be used for patients that have symptoms? Well, that's a discussion to have with your doctor. And I will list some other tests and not go into a lot of it, just so you know that it's not cut and dry. Coronary calcium scan. Scan is, SCAN. I did not say SCAM. I did not say it's a scam yet. Talk to your doctor. Do you really need it? Is it really worth the radiation exposure? And what are the false positives that I could get? What are the misdiagnoses I can get if I undergo this scan? So if you're at low risk or you're at high risk, coronary artery calcium score may not offer any actionable insights. So why get it? And CT scans and MRIs, we do a lot of them in the United States. But they do have drawbacks, right? One person describes them as incidentalomas, an unexpected abnormality that can lead to unnecessary additional tests, unnecessary additional treatments, and stress and anxiety. And how about the false positives? That means they see something on the scan, they're not sure what it is, and that requires more tests. Bone density scans, do you really need one every year? Or do they really help in judging the treatment for osteoporosis? Well, here's what I want you to do. Choose wisely. What do I mean by that? Here are some tests. Here's some questions to ask before you get any test or procedure. Number one, do I really need this test or procedure? Number two, what are the risks? Will there be side effects? What is the chance of me getting results that are not accurate? As we said, that could lead to a domino effect of more testing or other procedures. So, one, do I really need the procedure or test? What are the risks? Number three, a simple question. Are there simpler, safer options? Could I make some changes to my lifestyle? Can I eat better? Can I exercise more? Can I get rid of some toxins in my life? Number four, what happens if I don't do anything? The condition that you think I have is going to get worse, is going to get better. Will anything happen if I don't have this test or procedure right away? Ask the question. And number five, ask how much it costs. Maybe you should ask about less expensive tests or treatments, especially if your insurance is not going to cover it. Now, I didn't develop these tests. These are from Consumer Report and the American Board of Internal Medicine. But, a doctor organization put this out. Do I really need this test or procedure? What are the risks? Are there simpler, safer options? What happens if I don't do anything, and how much does it cost? So today, my goal is just to make you think. Talk to you about subjects that you probably will not hear on mainstream media. Speaking about mainstream media, did you hear on all the major news channels this headline? A court in Europe determined that the PCR test is legally useless to test for COVID. Now, that was the test early in the Chinese virus where they spun it over 30 cycles per second and almost guaranteed a positive test. The Nobel Prize winning scientists who developed this test said it should never be used for diagnosis. It was a test developed to be used in the lab. And I'm not going to go in because you already know what a scamdemic that was. But did you hear? Has your doctor told you? Has anybody told you that PCR testings were declared legally useless? Well, of course, they're the ones that promoted it, so they're going to ignore this. So, the case, which was held in Portugal, centered on the reliability or lack of reliability of the COVID-19 PCR test. Just like other tests, this test should never have been used for diagnosis. It was declared unreliable with a strong chance of false positive. No kidding. That's what we told you early on when we were canceled from every YouTube and what have you. Just canceled out of it because we told you the truth. You have to be a wellness warrior. Okay? I talked to you about Ozempic. And I guess, I know I don't want to go too long, but I just we'll lead with this next time. This came out of the Journal of Internal Medicine. And it has to do with the sun. Here's the title of the study. Avoidance of sun exposure as a risk factor for major causes of death. A competing risk analysis of the melanoma in southern Sweden cohort. Let me just tell you some headlines. Women with active sun exposure habits were mainly at lower risk of cardiovascular disease, non-cancer, and non-cardiovascular death as compared to those who avoided sun exposure. Second, this one I may have to explain. As a result of their increased survival, the relative contribution of cancer death increased in these women. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully as we have a lot of birthdays and get older, our cancer risk increases because our cells are not the same as when we were young. Our cancer risk increases along with our biological age. The longer you live, the more your risk. Therefore, these women had increased sunlight exposure. It increased their longevity, so it appears that they may have an increased risk of cancer. But it does not mean that sunlight is intrinsically cancer causing. And that's what most people assume. And that's why they put these petroleum-based toxic products all over their skin. Those that use the spray and inhale it into their lungs. Well, I'm not saying be reckless with the sun, but I'm saying you don't have to avoid the sun. It's actually a God-given nutrient for us. Well, I'll go more into this, especially they did some things with smokers that were incredible. That non-smokers who avoided sun exposure, okay, you're not a smoker, you don't go in the sun. Guess what? Their life expectancy was similar to smokers in the highest sun exposure group. Think about it. Avoidance of sun exposure is a risk factor for death similar to heavy smoking. I want you to think about the sun again. I want you to talk to your doctors about it. And synthetic sunscreens virtually guarantee you to have harm from the toxins in that exposure, and as you get exposed to those toxins. Okay. So if you want to live longer, you want to increase your life expectancy, don't be a sun avoider. We'll talk more about this next week, but you get the idea, ladies and gentlemen. Our healthcare system is broken. Less qualified people will be getting their degrees. The ones that have degrees now are employed, which means they take their marching orders from the boss. We saw what happened during the Chinese virus when doctors were not allowed to write for ivermectin, but now in a court case, the FDA reversed it and said they should never have said that. But doctors went along with it because they were afraid of getting fired from their job. So we have to embrace our holistic approach. Build a network of similar thinking people. And we haven't even touched on frequency medicine, divining rods, Reiki, Qigong, acupuncture, all the things that affect our energy system. And you'd be surprised what part your thyroid plays in all this. Really key to your mitochondria, cancer, heart disease, and just feeling great. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dr. Ron, and I like playing this little clip from a movie.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be able to handle the truth because there's so much psychological warfare going on for our minds. We have to be able to think that there could be a competing idea out there, and it may be better to the one that is advertised every day, every night on our televisions. So keep that in mind. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. All right, we'll get Freddie in here to close us out. Or maybe not. Okay, well, I guess Jack Nicholson, he muddied up the audio. Anyway, see ya. Have a great day. Bye.